tell us about the Penn-McKee. Tell us, when you say $980,000, what is that money? Where are the pots of money that's coming from?
Thank you for asking, Jason. It's wonderful to have a chance to talk to you about all of this. We were able to raise, with our partnership of DJS Ventures, which is Doug Scouron, $980,000 to clean out the Penn-McKee Hotel. $500,000 came from the EPA, and the state matched with $480,000 from the ISRP fund. That's the Industrial Sites Repurpose Program. So that's where the resources came in. And so the most pressing need right now is to determine if the Penn-McKee is actually salvageable. We had mentioned before we started talking that like a person who mistreats themselves most of their life, and then they go to the doctor and they hope that the doctor can erase all of their bad choices. The Penn-McKee has sat vacant for too long. And so we have an engineer who's working with KU Resources. They are the group that are going in to do the work to clean out the asbestos, the mold, the lead, all the environmental garbage that's in there. And so they first need to assess if the steel structure that's holding the building together is still viable. And so that's where we are right now. So as optimistic as I am about having those resources to really create a positive movement for the Penn-McKee, we do need to make sure that the old building can support anything new that's going to come. I'm actually hopeful, reasonably confident that can be so. But let's get the experts to weigh in before we make any grand pronouncements.
Okay, so let's do best case scenario, worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is a vacant lot, I'm presuming.
Yes, the worst case scenario is that we all watch the thing just collapse from neglect.
Okay, so the next worst case scenario is a vacant lot.
Well, yeah, so when I met with the mayor's team early on, and I have such great respect for all of them and for all the work that they do, I showed them two pictures. One was of the William Penn in downtown Pittsburgh, and the other one was the former Penn-Lincoln Hotel in Wilkinsburg that were all made by the same architect. It's like, well, which of these two do you want? Do you want the restored, vibrant hotel, or do you want the vacant lot?
Well, in the same architect also for people who attended the University of Pittsburgh designed, I believe, Belfield Hall, which is the former Young Men's Hebrew Association. And in fact, if you went to Pitt and you're familiar with Belfield Hall, it's the same brick, I believe, on the outside of that building that's on the Penn-McKee. Some of the same, the windows are very similar as well.
Yes, it is. So it's amazing. This gentleman had a wonderful impact on the region. So it's like you had mentioned earlier, we just can't save it because we want to, put it in amber and have it be a little trophy. It really needs to be a workable building. So these are the resources we're hoping that can take us very far down that path to return it to a viable building.
So that's, you've touched on the next thing I want to ask you, which is it's not just to save it just because the architect was a great architect. It's not one of his, if the William Penn, or I believe he also did Rolling Rock Farms, Mellon, I think he may have done Mellon Institute as well, correct?
He did, yes.
These are kind of landmark buildings. The Penn-McKee is not of that same quality in terms of the architecture. It's a kind of a plain, unadorned building. But talk to me about the location of the building. Real estate agents often talk of location, location, location. Why is the location of the building, in addition to the historic value, important?
If it were not where it is, I don't think that we would have any chance of preserving the building and renovating it. Its connection to the bike trail, the marina, and the Palisades give it a lifeblood that if we can tap into those economic drivers in concert, working together, that's going to give it the best chance that it could possibly have as a utility to the community of McKeesport, because if you are at the marina, if you're on the bike trail, if you come to the Palisades, wouldn't it be so nice to have some place to go before you went home, to have dinner, to meet a friend, have a bevy, and just be able to enjoy the space, spend some money. You know, we often joke about this line and learn from David Cayley from the Progress Fund that successful historic preservation needs cash registers. But what does that mean? Well, it just means that you need to have this flow of money going through so that you have jobs. You know, if someone has $40 in their pocket and they're on the bike trail and they're riding by, wouldn't it be nice for them to stop and spend it? They're looking to spend it somewhere. And so that's just kind of what we're talking about. It's like this building is in the perfect spot to really make an impact for McKeesport. I would also like to go on the record as saying that I'd like to encourage the powers that be in the mayor's office to reconsider making Fifth Avenue a two-way street so that it's easier to get to that block and that there is a more organic flow back and forth. So those are the kinds of ideas that doesn't really cost anything. So those are the kinds of things that we'd like to encourage in our conversations.
Let's say, let's take the flow chart here. You know, when is the engineer's report due, or when
we are expecting the report in the middle of January, and we will be having a public meeting with the redevelopment authority to announce that information.
So let's speculate, or let's do the thought exercises, as one of my professors used to say, of the engineer's report says, yes, the steel frame, parts of it have deteriorated, but parts of it are usable and savable. What happens next with this $980,000 that you mentioned?
Well, then you just start to clean out what is you can save. I think you would have to remove what you can't save. And those are the resources that could be used for that. And
part of the back part of the building is what I have heard anecdotally is probably going to have to come down. The part
that's my understanding as well. But why couldn't it be rebuilt?
Yeah.
Right. So we're not looking at something that just is this impossible task that once it comes down, it's gone forever. You know, you can even dismantle it in a way so that you could rebuild the building with the same bricks.
Yeah.
On the same footprint if you wanted. Or you can say that, you know, we're going to sort of rebuild it the way it was, but we're going to make some stylistic upgrades. And we're going to improve on what the original building was, maintaining its character from what it was before.
One path on a flow chart that says, yes, the steel frame, most of it is salvageable. We can salvage the exterior of the building, most of it. And so then that clean out process begins with an eye towards stabilizing and preserving the exterior of the building, or most of it. Let's say the other path on the flow chart, that the engineer comes back in mid-January and says, no, the steel frame has gone too far. The building has been empty for too long. It's been empty for 40 years. The building has been empty for too long, and it's not salvageable. You mentioned $980,000 in fundraising that Young Preservationists and DJS Ventures have done on behalf of the city to raise money to clean up, environmentally remediate the building. Does that money then have to go back?
No, that money can then be used to demolish the building.
Okay, to safely demolish the building and remove the environmental hazards.
Safely demolish the building, yes. At which case, the Young Preservationists Association would have to politely step back, because demolishing historic properties is not the business that we're in.
You're not the Young Demolitionists Association.
And I'm thankful that we're not. And so that's something then we would have to help to manage, but it would be something then that we would have to graciously step back. But I want to say is that the purpose of the study that we did a couple of years ago, it was never solely focused on the Penn-McKee.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Penn-McKee block. You could still have a successful story here, even if we would unfortunately have to lose the Penn-McKee. And I don't want to lose the Penn-McKee. But the idea is to maintain the historic resources, the historic assets that the city of McKeesport has, and also to learn some lessons about stewardship, because that Penn-McKee was built by the hard-earned money of all the citizens of McKeesport, and it wasn't treated like it was important at one point. And I know that we got into a really difficult situation, and Lord knows I'm not going to cast blame on anybody, because a lot of things happened that got us in this situation. But where do we go from here? And I think that is what is going to be the golden question. And I think that the secret to a rejuvenated McKeesport, in my humble opinion, has always been by building out from the marina, the bike trail, and the Palisades.
So to me, what it sounds like for the person who is going to be viewing our little interview, or is that this is at an inflection point. This is at a crossroads, and things are not going to just continue as they have been forever. There's going to be a decision point reached here in January, February, March of 2022, and there's going to be some activity there. And it's kind of where the facts lead us, as Cyril Wecht would say. Where the facts lead us is what the decision is going to be on the Penn-McKee.
Right, and I'm still hopeful that that's going to be a positive outcome. And this is something that we mentioned prior to this conversation. There has never in the history of the world been as much capital in the system as there is now. And that's going to continue into 22, maybe slightly beyond that. But then it's going to run dry again. And so there's a lot of competition, but there is a lot of political capital available to try to make something happen. And the time to really do that is now.
Matthew Craig from the Young Preservationists Association is going to be my guest on the radio Sunday morning on Radio 81 WEDO, 1550 and 101.1 WZUM, the Pittsburgh Jazz Channel, and available as our free podcast, 2 Rivers 30 Minutes, which is underwritten in part by the support of Striffler's Family Funeral Homes. We will be talking not just about the Penn-McKee, but also about the top 10 that the Young Preservationists put out. Which has created a lot of conversation here in the last week of December 2021. So I look forward to everyone joining us on the radio this Sunday. Thank you, Matthew.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much.